USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, January 26, 2022. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. This is brought to you by DCU, Digital Federal Credit Union. What will DCU mean to you? Find out today by visiting dcu.org. Membership required. Jim, a perennial top team in college hockey is Minnesota State. Every year, they're right up at the top.
And joining us now on USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of Minnesota State, that's Mike Hastings. Mike, what a little run this has been. 12 out of the last 13 games you've won, including what was a pretty enjoyable game, I'm sure, to coach in last Saturday outdoors against St. Thomas. Tell me about your team and maybe even start with that game. How much fun was it to get to coach in snow and the elements of Minnesota?
Well, you know what? First of all, thanks for having me on. And it was, for me, it was a bit of a bucket list. We get an opportunity to watch them sometimes on TV or discuss with others that have had that opportunity. And it was great all the way up until they forecast snow. Then the coach in you looks at it and says, okay, was this a great idea to go outside? But at the end of the day, it was for us in Hockey Day in Minnesota, it was a lot bigger than just the hockey game that we played in. But it was a great experience. The local organizing committee, the Minnesota Wild, Valley Sports, whoever, all the people that were involved did a phenomenal job at providing an opportunity for our team, St. Thomas, and a lot of people in the game of hockey to, enjoy what it's like to go out and play outside.
I've visited Minnesota plenty of times, and even in the wintertime when it's not that cold, but there's something hardy about Minnesotans. And watching the number of people, I mean, they were packed in like sardines. It was driving snow for part of that game in single-digit temperatures. They kind of defined how hardy fans can be out there for their sports.
You know what was unique about it is when it started snowing, that was when everybody was arriving. And so we hadn't quite had the accumulation. But by the end of the game, I mean, we were in blocks of 5 minutes. We were hoping for whistles because every 5 minutes they bring the shovels up. And there were a couple of instances in the game where it went for 8-9 minutes without a whistle. And there's a little, I guess I'd call it a rooster tail on the back end of the puck and stop. The fans were having fun regardless, whether the game was going on or not. Let's just put it this way. The food stands and the beer stands were open and they were enjoying the event. We were playing a hockey game. They were enjoying the event. So it was pretty unique.
I look at a game like that in the elements, and sometimes when you get those strange weather situations, the underdog suddenly has a better chance. But your team, you held St. Thomas to just 7 shots in the entire game. You ended up with a 7-1 victory. What did you like about the ability to perform in tough elements?
Well, you know what? The game, we got off to a lead, which helps, right? Because all of a sudden it takes a little bit of that anxiety away of what could the elements end up doing. We dropped the puck in the second period. Their first shot goes in off of one of their guys, and it's 2-1. And as the game went on and we were able to extend the lead, I think that went away a little bit. But the good thing was we got off to a lead and we didn't relinquish that. And as the game went on, I thought other things started to impact the game. Like when I talk about the shovelers, by the middle of the second period, the young people that were coming out and shoveling, they were gassed. They were, and so our guys are sitting on the bench, and I'm sure St. Thomas was too if you asked Rico about it. And they're watching these, the Pee-wees, Bantams, high school guys go out in their jerseys, and they were taking off inches of snow, and you could see by the end of it, when they were down to an end, it was feet of snow. And so it was almost to where once the game started to get a little bit where I thought we were in a good position, all of a sudden the guys started to enjoy the process of just what the game was being outdoors. And it didn't just become something that was, how do we get it in and out of our zone? I thought they were able to enjoy a little bit more of the event.
Well, Mike, let's talk a little bit about this year's team. And, we'll get into the guy between the pipes who everybody is talking about nationally, but you're also defensively doing a great job. We just mentioned 7 shots on Sunday for St. Thomas in a game, but you've had some really low shot totals again. Your team defense has to be one of the most impressive in the country right now. I believe it's you and Quinnipiac that are allowing the least amount of shots nationally. What can you say about this D-core?
Well, I think as you mentioned before, it does start with Dryden, to where, and we talk about anxiety in your game, our guys are okay if something does happen. We've got somebody back there that more often than not, it doesn't end up in the back of your net. So I think it allows you to play, I don't know if the word's free, relaxed, whatever it ends up being. And then when you start to look at what we have back from a year ago, the defensive core is pretty much intact. And we've got some long guys back there. We've got some guys that can play heavy and that take a lot of pride in defending first. In Wyatt Amat, Jack McNeely, 2 of our leaders, 2 of our captains. I think we've benefited from Benton Moss coming from UNH and being a 5th-year guy that's been around the block out in a very, I think respected in one of the best leagues in all of college hockey and Hockey East. And then you add in a couple of young guys that went from freshmen to sophomores in Akito Hiroshi and Jake Livingstone. And if you look at that group, if you can rely upon them and a guy that's been through the battles that Dryden's been through, it gives you an opportunity to get out of your zone in a hurry. And I think that has been a big piece for us, is we haven't spent a lot of time in our end. And if we have, Dryden's been there to kind of bail us out.
Well, let's talk about Dryden McKay, the man that was named after Ken Dryden and is playing like him for his entire career. First off, were you surprised that he wanted to return, knowing that, he probably had a chance to possibly leave and sign an NHL contract, but he wanted to come back? He felt after last year, it seemed like there was some unfinished business. But did that surprise you in terms of, knowing who he is and what he wants to accomplish? It's one where I think in the world we live in hockey, sub 6 foot goaltender is an anomaly in our world now. They're 6'3", 6'4" at the elite level. Excuse me. And Dryden being Dryden wanted to get his degree. It was something that was very important to him. And he understands the world that he lives in, on what opportunities are going to be for him down the road. And so I think he looked at it and said, most goaltenders that are successful once they leave college are guys that are a little bit longer in the tooth. When you're looking at the average NHL starter, it's not 18, 19, 20, 21. They're a little bit longer as far as how long they've been in the pro ranks. And then 2, just some of the ideas that you just brought up. 1, the degree. 2, the idea of coming back and being with his class and being able to try and do something that we've never done, which is have an opportunity to win a national championship.
More with Mike Hastings in a moment. This podcast is brought to you by DCU Digital Federal Credit Union. Visit dcu.org.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online.
Know how people say life happens? Well, for me, life was happening, and I needed a new truck. I didn't have time to shop around for a good loan, so I got one from the dealer, higher interest and all. Month after month, those payments were squeezing me. So I went to DCU. They refinanced my loan and helped lower my rate, which lowered my payments. These days, I have more money in my pocket for whatever life throws at me. What will DCU mean to you? Insured by NCUA. Membership required. Visit dcu.org.
USCHO Spotlight continues with Minnesota State head coach Mike Hastings. Mike, this is the first year of the CCHA. A lot of familiar teams, but a new leadership and a new effort on promotions and media. What's it been like so far this year with the new league?
You know, I've enjoyed it, not because of what we've done on the ice, but just really leadership wise. And again, everything's new. We're not quite as large as of a footprint as what we used to be. We're not traveling to Fairbanks. We're not traveling to Anchorage. So I do believe that's been a little bit better for the student athletes, let alone the old guys on the bus, the coaching staffs. So that's been good. But I'll just say, when you can have somebody like Don Lucia come in and be our commissioner, and have a guy that has sat in my seat, has been in a seat where when he was at Fairbanks, you know, there's a Division I hockey program, but you've got Division II athletics around you. Same thing with what he'd done at Colorado College, and then being at a university, a Big Ten school like the University of Minnesota. When he's gone through scheduling issues, when he's gone through funding issues at certain institutions, just what he's brought to us to unify the group, officiating, just bringing everything under the umbrella, I think has allowed the coaches and everybody else, presidents at the universities, to focus on what they're supposed to focus on. And I think that leadership has allowed us to get off to a good start here. And Ed, you're the one that brought it up. I'll say, whether it's social media, whether it's how we're looked at when you pull up our website. I just think what he's done with his staff, it's gotten us off to a good start as a league. And I think everybody that is under that umbrella is trying to keep up with that lead. And I think that's helping all of us.
Even video production of games is very noticeable with the new league. Well,
and you're right on there. Like, we're sitting here and we're doing this via Zoom, and how are we perceived as a league? How do we look? And the one thing I'm just very appreciative of is Don came in and said, "Hey, listen, we need to improve in these areas, and if we want to be looked at a certain way, we have to do things a certain way." And he put the standards in. The presidents approved them, supported them, funded them, and I think it's allowed us to get off to a good start.
On Tuesday was the announcement from the Hockey Humanitarian Award Committee of the nominees for this year. Your team captain, Wyatt Amat, was nominated. What can you tell us about Wyatt?
He definitely makes my job easier, which I appreciate. And it's, give you an example, just right off the cuff. We up and we play at the Icebreaker, and his family's there because obviously he's from Hermantown, along with Ryan Sandelin's family. And Scotty was worried about his team. I was worried about mine. We went up there. We go back over Christmas, and it's New Year's Eve, and Wyatt's mom and dad were, kind enough to host our entire team at their home. As you guys know, if you're trying to feed 26, 27 players and a staff on New Year's Eve, you've got a tough time finding a place. And they were kind enough to open it up to us. They're just phenomenal human beings. They understand what it is to take care of others. And that's one thing that he has done as a captain, not only on the ice, off the ice, classroom, his involvement in the community. And it's not for any other reason than that's just what he believes is important. He's a perfect example of, I think, a young man being balanced in his life, whether that's the academic, the social, or the athletic. And he represents his family in a very special way, and he does the same thing with our program.
Earlier this month, you were announced as one of the assistant coaches on the USA Olympic team, and one of your players, Nathan Smith, gets to make the trip. What has the preparation been like so far for that?
Well, right now it's picking up. We've got great leadership with David Quinn and the rest of the staff. David's done a really good job at just disseminating information and saying, hey, here's where you're going to fit in, and here's what we need you to do. So we've already started that process, whether it's Brett Larson, myself, Younger, and David Lassonde. And so he's done some marching orders. And so we've started on those. As we're getting closer, those are starting to become a little more prevalent, a little more often. But he's also done, I think, a great job at allowing us that have other jobs prior to going into it to still be able to manage those. And for the players, I think it's just, they get to play through Friday and Saturday of this weekend, and then everybody's leaving. And so when we've talked to some of the players, and I have just recently, I've talked to them about how excited I am to see them on Sunday, but nothing but the best in finishing their jobs at what they're doing right now before we go and chase gold in Beijing.
Well, before you do leave for that Olympics, a big series coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday against Arizona State, non-conference, your final two non-conference games of the year, Mike. For Arizona State, I want to talk more about them maybe than your team. This is a pretty big series because I think they know where they stand as an independent team pairwise. They know that they have to come out with some victories if they're going to be an NCAA tournament team. Have you talked about the urgency that might be on the other side? This is almost like a conference championship for Arizona State, where it's just two non-conference games for Minnesota State.
Well, and this isn't to pump your tires, but I've listened to you previously on a couple of your podcasts, and so you alerted me to that a little bit earlier than I might have gotten to it, because I think you're right on. And it was a seed that was planted in the back of my head that, I've looked at their schedule, what they have left, and this is incredibly important for them. And the one thing that I can tell you, we played them a couple of years ago. They're a program that obviously is on the rise. They've got their rink coming in. What Coach Powers and that program has been able to do as an independent to get to the NCAA tournament and actually have the expectation of getting to the NCAA tournament every year, I think is pretty special. And right now, watching them on tape, they're good. They're a hard out. They're deep up front. I think they're as good off the rush as we've seen this year. And when they've gotten the goaltending that they have right now, they're deep back at the blue line. They're long. They're heavy. I think they can beat you a lot of different ways. And when you stack all those things up, going into this weekend with them looking what they have left on the schedule, this is their playoffs. And so, yeah, we've discussed it. Long answer to your question. We've discussed it because I think we've got a lot of respect for them just based upon what they've done in previous years. And when we've played them, how hard it's been to play against them. But I think they're playing as good a hockey as they've played all year right now, and they're going to be a difficult team to beat.
When X's and O's wise, you talk about their speed, and you've got we mentioned it already, a very solid defense. It almost feels like the unstoppable force against the immovable object here. What do you have to do to make sure that you still get to play your defensive structure against such a fast team?
Well, I think we've got to manage when they get the puck. We better be coming back in a group of five. Back pressure. The second thing is we can't go out and help create their offense through poor puck management, through going to the penalty box, because they're as confident as a group as I've seen with it. I mean, they come in and they can move east and west, and they sling it around pretty good, and they can do it with a heaviness to them. And so for us, again, puck management, get off to a good start. I don't want to be playing from behind against that group because I think that they can, they really, if they start to feel good, they can stretch games and stretch 1 into 2 into 3 in a real hurry. And I think that's going to have to be for us. Be disciplined, stay out of the box, and not create their offense because they're going to get their offense through their own creativity themselves.
Well, Mike Hastings, we always love getting to talk to you this time of year. It's good, but it's even more special knowing that you'll be heading over with Team USA. So safe travels. Best of luck the Olympic team, and then obviously the rest of the way, you've got some really good stuff going on up there in Mankato. So thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
That's Minnesota State head coach Mike Hastings. Mike has got to love his team. They are playing so well. He's got everything firing on all cylinders, and he's going to have a huge test coming up this weekend.
Yeah, this is, outside of what he also obviously wants to accomplish within his own league, this is a pretty big series. And, it's good to know that it hasn't gotten past him or anybody on his staff, that this really is kind of like the conference championship for Arizona State, an independent team. This is, a do or die series for them. So I think they're going to get the best effort from the Sun Devils. And, what I do look for though is, the ability for Minnesota State to be able to play some shutdown D. They are just such a good team at limiting shots and limiting grade A's. And when you give up a grade A, as he kind of referenced, you've got Dryden McKay back there, and he's in a good position to make these stops. But, I look at Mike Hastings and what this year, he talked about last week being a bucket list. Now he's going to go to the Olympics. Then you're going to he's probably going to win another regular season title. This time it'll be the first one on the CCHA. Will be a favorite to win the CCHA tournament. And then, then you imagine what the ultimate prize could be if Minnesota State could win a national championship. And it's something that I certainly think is well within their reach. Sitting number one right now in the USCHO poll. They are right up there. I believe they're number 2 in the pairwise. I mean, this is a team that has the sky of the limit, for this season. And what an unbelievable year this could be for Mike Hastings and his staff.
You mentioned the Olympics. I remember back, I think it was January 5th when they announced the coaching lineup. And when Dave Quinn announced who he was going to have, I was very happy to see who he picked, and especially Mike Hastings. I mean, this is a guy we've gotten to see and gotten to speak with over the years. And, one of the top coaches, and for him to be able to represent his country as one of the assistant coaches on that Olympic team is a great honor. And I'm sure you were very happy to see that too.
Yeah, well, for a number of reasons. His international experience, that's a big part. Knowing how to get through these types of tournaments, that's first and foremost. But I also just look at him as such a relatable coach. And, he's going to, I don't know what area he'll work with, whether it's the power play, whether it's defense, he'll be assigned one of those types of responsibilities as one of the assistants on the bench. But whoever gets to work with him will get to, work with a coach that is so easy to work with. He is so, like I said, relatable. He's a down to earth type of coach. But I think most importantly, he understands the gravity of situations, but I don't think he lets that get to him. And that helps probably your players. They'll stay a little bit looser when they get to work with a coach like Mike Hastings. And I look at the personalities on this staff, right from David Quinn on down, and you have a lot of different coaching personalities. And I think that is a great mix. Mike Hastings obviously adds a big part to that mix.
And you know what? I was thinking about it as you're talking about this. People were disappointed at first about the NHL not being in the Olympics, but with 15 current college players and all of them former NCAA players, I can't help but be a little nostalgic for 1980. And I'm really excited to be rooting on these college players in Beijing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, what we saw 4 years ago when the NHL was not there was a little bit different. I think that the countries all took different approaches to how they built their teams. But for the U.S., it was a lot of older players, and old is good for leadership in this type of situation. But I think of what we have right now and some of the youth and younger players that, you look at the World Junior team from last year, and there was so many great players on that club that can, get a chance to contribute here. And I think that the youth and the talent at some of the younger ages right now, and I talk about those 15 current collegians, they will bring a lot of energy to this lineup. Will they be able to compete? I guess we'll have to see. I think there are some pretty darn good teams that are formed of, basically European professionals. And I think that there will be some maybe some places where they feel physically overmatched, but I think that you have a lot of talent on this U.S. roster. And you're right. You do get a little nostalgic for 1980.
Well, with that, we'll wrap up this edition of USCHO Spotlight, which has been brought to you by DCU, Digital Federal Credit Union. What will DCU mean to you? Find out today by visiting dcu.org. Membership required. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.